wrong is wrong. You're either part of the problem or part of the solution. Part of the solution.
I'm really well sicker.
Nothing rings as true and powerful as the clear voice of experience.
Your generation has become the most self-destructive generation ever created.
A career criminal turned counselor, victim turned advocate, dropout turned skilled developer of dynamic social programs for today's troubled youth.
Listen, when I was a drug dealer, I was probably more honest and more ethical.
Someone able to take direct aim on the issues and problems faced here and now.
One student every day from every university and college in North America drops out because of alcohol.
A powerful, provocative communicator.
Bad things do happen.
Armed with hard facts and challenges to change outlooks forever.
I'm going to be speaking with you, not at you. And I'm not here to speak baby talk with you, not here to give you a lecture or a speech. All I ask for you is to be honest with yourselves, or at least as honest with yourselves as I'm going to be with you. And I don't ask for your agreement on the things that I speak about. What I ask you to do is to think about the things that I speak about from my perspective, go away and think about them for yourselves, not in front of your friends, but alone, and then come to your own decision about what I speak about. And if I've done that, then I have served my purpose as a communicator. I'm a provocative speaker. Basically, what that means is I'm not here to entertain you, and I don't care whether you like me, and I don't particularly care whether you like what I have to say. What I care about is that you are challenged by what I speak about. And I will speak on the issues that mostly affect your generation, especially like no other generation before you. I will speak to you from two perspectives. When I look at the issues facing young women today, sexism, gender issues, racism, I'll speak to you from a perspective as a product of rape. My mother was a pure-blood Cree native. She was raped at 13 years old. She gave birth to me when she was 14 years old. In an abandoned building. In the first 8 years of my life, I was brought up in the inner city of Toronto. My mother realized on the east coast of Canada, because of racism, that I wouldn't fit into the native community 50 years ago because I wasn't totally native, and I wouldn't have fit in the white community because I wasn't totally white. And she migrated to the city of Toronto. The problem was that she couldn't read and write, and she couldn't speak English. And so the first 8 years of my life, I was brought up in a rooming house in the inner city of Toronto. And when I look at the issues facing young women, they're obviously defined by that experience. And in later conversations with my mother, as I examined her life and what she went through, I bring that wisdom with me. When I look at the issues facing choices of your generation and how choices can irrevocably define and change a direction of a life, I look to my own life. Where at 8 years old, I was to make a choice that was to lead me to be incarcerated in one of Canada's most violent and brutal training schools. to set me on a path that would have me spend a total of 21.5 years of my life incarcerated, over 17 years in the federal penitentiary system. I will bring that wisdom as I look at your choices that you make in your generation, especially around the issues of drugs and alcohol, where I began to drink at the age of 13 and then switched over to drugs and spent 20 years of my life as a drug addict, 7 years as an intravenous drug user. I spent the majority of my career both being a victim of drugs and being a victimizer of drugs. My last arrest in 1984 was for a $40 million drug laboratory. And I will bring that perspective as I look at those issues with you. But don't let the tattoos fool you. I will also challenge you academically. I'll challenge your mind. I will back my mouth up with sound academic argument. I graduated on the Dean's Honors List at the University of Waterloo at the top 3% of 6,000 students. I'm one of Canada's leading experts in adolescent substance abuse. I have 3 degrees in cross sciences. So I will challenge you, challenge your mind to look at the issues along with me. Your generation is a paradox, set of opposites, and you'll hear me refer to this many times during my talk, because for your generation, you're more of a paradox than any other generation before you in the terms of opposites for your generation. On the one hand, you're the finest generation ever created. Genetically and biologically, you're more advanced than any other generation. You're bigger, you're stronger. And as my stepson would say, you're better looking. You contain a greater body of knowledge at your age than any other generation before you, with the advancement of technology and computers. You're more sophisticated, often more mature. You are the most media literate generation ever. Technology is advanced for you to give you as a generation the finest education, a more rounded and grounded knowledge base than any other group of young people before you. Now the paradox. Your generation has become the most self-destructive generation ever created. Your generation has created stats and numbers that have never been created before. Not only in the history of North America, but also in the history, some of them in the history of humankind. Suicide, second leading cause of death among young people. That's never happened before, ever in the history of humankind, where suicide would have such an impact upon the lives and the deaths of young people in your age bracket. Suicide rate from 15 to 24-year-olds has quadrupled in 20 years. Suicide kills more young people in North America than die by guns. Number one killer of 21-year-old males is suicide. More 21-year-old males die in North America by suicide than die by accidental death. And more startling than all of that is that the suicide rate has lowered to the age of 10. And the suicide rate from 10 to 15-year-olds in 20 years has quadrupled, doubled, doubled, doubled again. And for the first time in the history of North America, we have 10-year-old children hanging themselves in their clothes closets rather than face the pressures and the challenges and the choices in their everyday lives. And that's never happened before. And it doesn't matter where I go across North America. The problems that you face here are the same problems that every young person faces right across North America. I have had to cancel talks on the East Coast because a 13-year-old boy committed suicide. I've had to cancel a talk on the West Coast because it was too close after 3 young persons committed suicide, and the oldest one was 13. The reality that you face, no matter if I'm in Indiana, or whether I'm in Wyoming, or whether I'm in Florida, or whether I'm up in Canada, and the northern reaches of Canada, problems are the same for young people. And that is uniquely yours for your generation. Teen violence has increased 186% in 10 years for your generation. For every 1 out of 100 adults who's assaulted, 1 out of 16 teenagers is assaulted. Your generation faces more aggression going through school than any other group of young people ever done in civilized history. Alcohol and alcohol-related deaths are the #1 killers of him. 73% of teenagers have binge drunk at least twice by the time they have turned 17. Binge drinking has doubled in the last 5 years, and for the first time in the history of North America, we have young people dying of alcohol poisoning as a major way to die. That's never happened before. On the paradox of your generation, well, on the one hand, you are so sophisticated and intelligent. On the other hand, you stick out your chest like you've done something of great social import and intellect by being the biggest group of drunks that North America has ever seen. I'm not here to speak baby talk with you. If we can have 10-year-old children hanging themselves in their clothes closets, young people dying of alcohol poisoning, it is time that we talk to your generation about the reality that you face and how you face it.